What's good, Faith Walkers? Welcome back. We are going to dive into, if you've been tracking with us, a development on ridiculous freedom. So if you are brand new, welcome. We have a spirit-led formation school. It's a training hub called Courage Co, where we are in there monthly for live masterclasses and live teaching and training, and then also a prophetic encouragement and fellowship night. And that's just the most basic foundational level. But then we have courses. We have over 9 different signature programs where there's coaching, life coach certification, prophetic training, so many different paths, if you will, to meet you where you are. But right now we are in full capacity season, and I call it this because I am launching my next book called Full Capacity: How to Live Ridiculously Free and Fuel a Life Without Limits on March 21st. So in our journey leading into that, we've had so many different experiences that you are welcome to plug into at any time. We have a 40-day full capacity devotional going on, so you can plug into that. That's totally free. You'll get a devotional every single day. We also started a live activation this week, so you're welcome to plug into that and join us live over the next coming weeks and catch the replay on that. That does include your ticket to the live launch events, whether that's going to be in person or live stream. And then we also do have a live event. Instead of just having a launch party, we are doing a full day event and treating folks to what we do behind the scenes. And it's so much. A majority of the work that we do is behind the scenes. Social media is just such a small part. It's like a drop in the bucket compared to what we do. So you can also join the live event or the live stream depending on where you might find yourself. So that is all upcoming. I will make sure that I put all the details below if you'd like to learn about that, get the book, be a part of the journey. You're welcome to. But I do also recommend that you plug into Courage Co. We just did a Ridiculous Freedom Masterclass a week ago, I believe, about a week ago. And that replay will be up until our launch. So you can go enjoy the goodness that was Ridiculous Freedom. But I wanted to share today, together here, the infrastructure behind Ridiculous Freedom. Because my entire life, really, I have really had people that have been confused or intrigued or sometimes even irritated that I have joy, that I somehow have like a bounce back anointing where I am very resilient, enduring, and I can turn so many negative things into a positive, and I can turn really gross situations into gold. And that's just been how the Lord has wired me, but it's also been a decision. But sometimes people can confuse calm, peace, joy, and just kind of this different ease, like you're naive, like you're immature, like you haven't experienced any sort of life, and they couldn't be more wrong. But sometimes we confuse it because it's so rare. So I did want to invite people in to what is the infrastructure, right? What is that allows you to live with this ridiculous freedom? Like, people think so many things are ridiculous, but I have a different perspective. I think being super serious is ridiculous. Like, what is that giving you other than stress and inflammation, right? And just acid, right? Just you become more acidic on your insides. How is that helping you out? It's not, right? It's giving you chronic illnesses and disease, right? Like, it's not helping you. Or constantly hustling and trying to perform and trying to perfect, or even having this standard of perfection. I think that's ridiculous, right? I think we should be living in ridiculous freedom, right? We're supposed to be free indeed. Let's get really serious about that. So, we do, though, live in this culture that equates being stressed out as you're a very important person. Like, the more stressed out you are, the more important you must be, right? The more busy you are, the more powerful you must be. We also equate exhaustion with ambition. We think that that's just, yes, you got to sweat for it, and you do need sweat equity, and you do need to put in some effort. A dream is going to come with much effort, but the exhaustion and burnout is very much overrated. We also equate intensity with intelligence, and sometimes that's just stupidity in action, right? It's foolishness. There's no wisdom in that at all. And we also equate cynicism and being like really judgmental of other people, hypercritical of other people as maturity. When really, maturity is looking at yourself, and you ain't got time to put a lens on everybody else when you're genuinely working on yourself. For real, right? So when somebody is joyful, genuinely, right? When they are calm, when they are free, when they have energy, when they're unrushed and unhurried, when they're going about life, we just assume that they're naive. We just assume that they, have never had any hardship. We just assume that they aren't caring that much. And that assumption does something. We've heard the saying, it makes an ASS out of you and me, right? So we assume they aren't caring much, and sometimes we're missing a lesson there. For years, for me personally, people have truly misread joy as being naive. They have misread my freedom as just like my personality, and they've misread my calm as just a lack of seriousness. Isn't that interesting? Maybe you've had that experience yourself. But what they couldn't see, and what I'm going to share with you today, is the infrastructure. None of that was random, and you can't just chalk it off to that, right? Freedom is truly not personality. Freedom is something that is received, and it is something that is built and established, right? You can receive the freedom that Christ has given you, and you can build on it or not. But when you do, that looks like something, right? Just like the fruit of the Spirit, all of it, it looks like something. Love looks like something. Peace looks like something. Joy looks like something. And a lot of times, we don't see people modeling the way because they're not being formed on the inside. So we're going to talk about what this looks like when people misjudge your strength. Joy is strength, right? And how you build the kind of internal capacity that allows you to live ridiculously free, for real, without being so fragile. Okay? So number one, if you have ever felt misjudged, overlooked, taken for granted, whatever it might be, Jesus was misjudged. Not that you can put yourself in the same category as Jesus, but you definitely can't feel sorry for yourself, right? If Jesus was misjudged, of course you're going to be misjudged. That's just what humans do, and Jesus knew humans. So let's anchor this biblically. Isaiah 53:3 says it this way: He was despised and rejected by men, a man of sorrows and pain, and acquainted with grief. So he was consistently misread. Like that was one of the most consistent things about Jesus. He was misread. People did not like the light. They tried to snuff it out and take it out. They called him a blasphemer. They called him a madman. They called him demon possessed, and they called him irreverent. Interesting, right? So he was the most internally ordered person ever to walk the earth. Talk about being regulated. He was regulated, right? John 8:14. Even if I do testify about myself, my testimony is true and reliable because I know where I came from and I know where I'm going. That is what I call directing your care, directing your focus. You decide where you're going to put your care, where you're going to put your affection, where you're going to put your focus, and where it's not going to go. Not that there won't be opportunities and distractions and different things that come your way, but you decide where you're going to direct your care. Sometimes we are way too careful about the wrong things. We don't need to care about careless opinions of man. We don't need to care about anything that is not our business. It's not our business, and we need to be careful to only care for what is within our care to care much for. Does this make sense? So, here's the thing. Jesus knew his origin, he knew his assignment, and he knew his trajectory. And he had to be very focused to stay on mission. And the same is true for us. A lot of times, it can be protection for people to not see you. That's good for you to know because maybe you would have overcompensated. Maybe you would have been really generous. Maybe you would have really sowed a whole lot of time, energy, and motion in this place, and that would have been a disservice to you and other people. Okay? So we see in Mark 4:38 this: Jesus himself was in the stern, asleep on the leather cushion. So there was a storm raging outside, but he was asleep inside. Okay? And that's true of how we get to live our life when you actually have accessed the free indeed life that God talks about. It's not being passive, it's not being naive, but it is being internally governed. It is having that internal authority, right? Where you rule and reign over your mind, over your emotions, over your heart, over your motives, over your behavior, over your words and your communication. Like, you are very clear and intentional about how you're showing up. So here's how you can apply this. When somebody is calm, challenge yourself to look further. Calm doesn't necessarily mean indifferent, and calm can actually be clarity. Clarity. So when you know who you are and where you're going, right? You don't need to mirror the panic of other people. You don't need to be swept up into every urgent thing that's vying for your attention. You just know what you have capacity to focus on and what you don't, what is yours to focus on and what is not. And you're not just caught up in every sort of comment or request or opinion or demand. You don't actually get swept up into all of that. Can you imagine? You literally don't have time and capacity for all of that. Okay? And people can only meet you at the level of their own growth and development. And the energy behind that will let you know where they are, right? Wisdom is too lofty for a fool. So you're not going to try to have a wise conversation with somebody who is committed to being a fool. They will not hear you. They will miss you every time. And you'll wear yourself out just trying to get to a place of understanding. Don't fall for it, right? Now we see too with David. He had joy as his strategy. That was literally his strategy. So he was expressive, which I love. He gives you permission to be a human, like not live in denial that you are a human, okay? He was expressive, he was honest, he was musical, he was emotional. Like, he just let his emotions flow. And he danced before the Lord. So great, right? 2 Samuel 6:14. And David was dancing before the Lord with all his might. I mean, talk about cutting loose, right? Like, he was dancing before the Lord with all of his might. How fun is that? And we all have that in us. At one point, this was back in the day when I had started my coaching practice, I had a office in a building that had a DJ school, and I learned how to DJ, and it was a whole thing, and I became very close with the owner and the whole team. And I helped get their operations and their systems and all the things in place. But I also went to events. And I was often on production, like behind the scenes, but I was also the party starter, because people would do these things at events where they would all they would order a dance floor, they would have a DJ, and this could be a corporate event, a wedding, all sorts of things. And they do this thing literally at every single event where the dance floor will be wide open, and all of a sudden all these humans act all serious and all composed, and like they never knew how to dance in their life. Like, they were never a kid. Like, they're just these really serious adults. So I would have to go out there and break the ice, quite literally, and get people dancing, get people letting loose, getting people operating in freedom. Like, you came here to just stand in the corner and observe people? That doesn't sound very fun at all. Like, get in the arena, get in the action, have a good time in this moment, celebrate, dance with all of your might, let it rip. And so that was something that was just a really interesting thing. And then the minute one person just initiated it, then the whole place would erupt. And this happens event after event after event. We pretend to be serious. We pretend like we are so composed all the time, when actually you're allowed to have joy. You're allowed to have freedom. You're allowed to dance with all your might before the Lord. And sometimes we don't even know how to do that anymore because we've just kept it locked up for so long, right? David danced before the Lord with all his might. You might just need to learn how to have a praise party all by yourself with the Lord. Now, people, right, despised him for it. People despised him for this. He was misjudged for his joy being immaturity. Isn't that interesting? But this same David was a military strategist. He was a disciplined warrior, and he was a king who inquired of the Lord before battle. So he wasn't naive. He wasn't immature. He had his own faults, for sure, okay, and his own flaws. However, he was also very intelligent, very skilled, and very wise. Okay, he had breadth and depth. He couldn't just be boxed into one limitation. And anytime we try to put a label or a limit on something, even if it's a flattering one, we limit ourselves. For absolutely sure, you will limit yourself when you define yourself by any sort of label or limit. You will. That's why you always have to humble yourself before the Lord and trust how he wants to lead you. 1 Samuel 30 verse 8, David inquired of the Lord saying, shall I pursue this raiding party? Shall I overtake them? And he answered him, pursue, for you will certainly overtake them and you will certainly rescue all. So joy did not cancel wisdom. It did not cancel strategy. Emotion did not cancel intelligence. Like, he knew how to emotionally process with the Lord, right? And worship didn't cancel warfare. He knew how to ebb and flow. He knew how to move in effort and in rest. He knew how to do it. He knew how to find rhythm and walk in step with the Lord. So here's the application for this. You can be expressive and structured. You can. You can be an anomaly to people. You don't have to fit their opinion, and you don't have to fit into their label and their mode and what they expect. That would actually be crazy. They don't even know who you are, yet you're trying to bend, morph, and shift and try to fit into what they think you should be doing. Well, who are they? Are they God to you? No. You need to listen to the Lord and have fear of the Lord, right? So you can be expressive and structured. You can be soft in your heart. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they seek God. It's very important that you keep a pure heart before the Lord so that you can hear the Lord, so that your prayers are answered, so that you can receive God's love and give God's love, right? You really can't love people well when your heart's impure, okay? And you can also be joyful and strategic, which would be wisdom. You're going to need strength with the strategy, right? And joy will keep refreshing you and refueling you. It's really good, okay? Now we see also Daniel. He practiced silence. And silence was restraint. So he knew, right? He knew meekness. He knew that he could act. He knew that he could speak up. And the restraint was wisdom. Okay? Daniel operated with composure in hostile environments. And we all have to learn that, right? And we even need to know how to operate, frankly, with composure on the internet. Sometimes it is wild to me what people feel like they should say, what they have just the freedom to say because of maybe free speech, right? But it's just showing a lack of maturity. In a lot of instances, they will just say something that they would never say to you if they weren't behind a computer. They don't know you. They have no relationship with you. They have no accountability. They have no covering, and they just want to sling any random opinion in a comment. Wow. Or they can just read a post and think that they know what that post means. Well, you're always reading the post from the level of your interpretation. That might not have even been the intent of the post, right? It's wild, but there's not maturity in how you go about having a dialogue. You can't have a whole discourse on the internet. People don't even have an attention span for that, right? So it's just really interesting. You have to know how to maintain a composed self. You have to know when to turn it up and show up in bigger energy, and you also have to know when to turn that down and practice restraint. That is maturity. Daniel 6:3. Then this Daniel distinguished himself above the presidents because an excellent spirit was in him. I was sharing, we did a Kingdom Builders Fellowship, a prophetic encouragement night a couple nights ago, and I was sharing on there, it's really, really interesting. If you are going to be called to speak before kings, let's say, and some people are, you can't act like a fool. You have to know that you're a king yourself. Otherwise, you're not going to speak the language and they will not receive you. You can't just be falling out and speaking all this crazy spiritual language. They will not receive you, and they for sure will not hear your message. You need to know how to give a word in season and season it in the way that they can hear it. That is wisdom, not immaturity. If you come with all this spiritualized information or even some sort of Christianese type of talk, they can't hear you. And they won't hear you. And if you are too insecure and you don't see yourself as a king, they won't receive you. So we have to know how to move. Daniel was elevated because of his internal excellence, not foolishness. When the decree came that he could not pray, he was elevated because of his internal excellence. Here's the decree. Daniel 6:10. He continued kneeling on his knees 3 times a day, praying and giving thanks before his God. He was told he couldn't praise and worship the Lord, and he turned it up because he knew who he was obeying and who his authority was. And he knew how to be composed when he needed to be and how to turn up when he needed to turn up. Okay? So there was no drama here. There was no panic here. There was no performative rebellion. He would just submitted himself to the Lord and worshiped harder because that's how we get breakthrough. Worship is warfare. So he was consistent in that. Silence was not ignorance here. It might have seemed that way from the outside, but things often are not as they appear. And man is always looking at the outward appearance, but God is always looking at the heart, and that's what he cared about. Silence was not ignorance, it was restraint. So here's how you apply this. You do not need to react to every accusation. You do not need to respond to every opinion and every notification. You do not need to explain every move you're making and keep people informed. Formation is what builds restraint so that you know how to move in these nuanced times and in these tense times where 2 things can be true. And that can be confusing. Restraint, right? Wisdom, discernment will help you know how to move. So here's why we misjudge joy, though. We can misjudge joy because we are used to performing and perfecting, and joy is one of the most vulnerable emotions. Unregulated systems usually disrupt our peace. And if somebody is truly internally chaotic, your stability will feel threatening and even suspicious to them. They're just like, what is this? Like an example, let's say that you are used to chaos. When somebody is calm, you're like, what's wrong here? And sometimes you create chaos because you don't know what to do with calm. You're not calm on the inside, and now since this person is calm, you feel threatened by that or insecure about that, so you start stirring up chaos yourself. Right? It's not always logical, but it is what we've trained and what we've practiced, and many times it can even be unconscious. Proverbs 14:30 says this, a calm and peaceful and tranquil heart is life and health to the body. It just makes good sense. It just makes good sense. Calm produces life. Calm produces life. Just like when you know the power of your words, like your words are creating reality, what you speak is creative, okay? It's a creative force. When you know that, you start speaking differently. When you know that, you even start renewing your mind differently. When you know that your mind is creating something, when you know that your words are forming something, it's substance being formed when it comes out of your mouth, you renew your mind and you tame your tongue, right? So similarly, when you know that joy or that calm or that peace, godliness with contentment is great gain, you choose it and you practice it. Chaos is what really kind of helps people bond culturally. They like to just bond over familiar chaos, but that doesn't mean that you have to follow the trend. Do not conform to patterns of the world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. That's exactly why you have to transform it, because it's so easy to just get swept up in something so quickly. So we often trust intensity more than integration because we're just kind of moving in adrenaline. So intensity is familiar to us. It feels the same. We trust a trauma bond more than quiet maturity and stillness. Because like drama and chaos and anxiety is just something we're used to living in. So when somebody is lighter, we assume that they haven't suffered. And it's so weird. It's almost like some people want you to suffer. It's very bizarre. I would not wish suffering upon anybody. Right? But often, lightness is forged in suffering. That's definitely been my story. James 1:2 says this, consider it nothing but joy. I didn't make this up, straight in the Bible. Consider it nothing but joy whenever you fall into various trials. You're not thankful for the thing necessarily, but you are thankful in all things. So joy in Scripture is not denial. It's developed endurance. It's developed endurance. Okay? So the infrastructure then behind ridiculous freedom, let's define it clearly. Ridiculous freedom is not reckless. It's actually radical responsibility. That's what it is. It's this internal order. You decide to submit to the Lord, to humble yourself before the Lord, to walk with the Lord, in step with the Lord. Okay? Full capacity means that you've built emotional regulation. You don't just like spew and project all of your thoughts and all of your emotions on people. That's just not careful or loving and kind to do. You don't live an undisciplined life. You are spiritually disciplined. You have decision clarity. You make sound decisions. You even put wise counsel around you so that they can show you blind spots. You have an identity that is anchored, and you have long-term thinking. You're not trying to move with like trends and so fast and like quick fixes and all the things. Like, you are on the obedience path. You're embracing the process and the season that the Lord has you in. Galatians 5:1 says, "It was for this freedom that Christ set us free." He did not set us free that we could keep returning to these yokes of slavery and bondage. That's not the point. And in fact, we already know how to be bound. We know how to be limited. We know how to be stuck. What we don't know how to do is be joyful, peaceful, kind, loving, generous, free. We need to see more of that, for real. Not for fake, for real. So freedom is not chaos. It's not. And it's not faking it, because you cannot fake fruit. You can't, right? I shared about this the other day. Fake it until you make it is not a strategy, because make what? A way that seems right to a man, but in the end leads to destruction. You're trying to fake it to make it down a path that doesn't even lead to the good plan and purpose that the Lord has for you. You can't fake your formation. You have to discipline and mature. You have to discipline and mature character. You absolutely do. And that's not ever going to feel comfortable. It's not. 2 Timothy 1:7, "For God did not give us a spirit of timidity, but of power, love, and sound judgment." We're supposed to be walking in that. Sound judgment, self-control, discipline. And sometimes when you're consistent with it, you just make that look easy. You're patient when other people lose their mind. You breathe through tough emotions and can speak a word in season when other people just react and lash out. You're rare. And that's exactly what the world needs right now. That's infrastructure. That's steadiness. That's being solid. Okay? So how do you build this? Hopefully you're kind of getting some clarity on this, but how do you build it? Well, you stop performing stressfully, right? To be taken seriously. We think that like, oh, I'm just so busy. I have this full schedule. I'm just so stressed out. We think that that makes us feel really important. But to who and for what? Like, is that the strategy that the Lord has called you to? Stress? What if he has skills to help you overcome the stress so that you can build in faith, that you can build in boldness, that you can build with courage, not stress? You don't need to look overwhelmed to be important at all. In fact, when you know you're important, you don't need other people to know. You just walk into your awareness, your God consciousness, in your new creation self. Number 2, build internal order. This is something that you have to build a day at a time, a step at a time, and a moment at a time. We teach this in the God's Vibes Mastermind. We have some daily practices in there, whether that's prayer, studying and meditating on the Word of God, just having active times of stillness and silence, Sabbath rest, reflection, praise, all of that, right? Gratitude, generosity, praying for people, interceding for people. You have to build these disciplines and this internal order, right? Because if you don't, weeds pop up. They just do. You have to have active resistance against the other things that are going to be forming. And number 3, you have to train emotional regulation. So when you go outside, when you go in the world, you're going to get dirty. Like, dirt will get on you just by you being outside. Okay, and so what this could look like, there could be a sudden thing that happens that you didn't see coming, right? Like sudden traffic on the road, right? And a delay. There could be things that trigger you emotionally, okay? But you can notice these things and you can pause before you respond to any of them and before you take action with any of them, and you can practice restraint. It's in the practicing of the restraint that you can actually open yourself up to receive wisdom from the Lord. When you humble yourself, he will exalt you in due time. So when you humble yourself, he will give you wisdom. Number 4, you can strengthen your decision making. You can literally get so good at letting your yes be yes and your no be no, because the Bible literally says anything else is from the evil one. It's a hard yes or a heck no. That's all it is. Anything else in there is unclear. So you just need to make sure that you get the stuff in between clear so you can let your yes be yes and your no be no. Small, consistent decisions, developing integrity with self, will help you show up and make the right decisions in these bigger moments. It's these small decisions that matter often more than the bigger ones, but they are what stabilize you for the bigger ones when you need to make them. And number 5, you choose depth over visibility. You choose depth over visibility. I shared recently this question. This is a great clarifying question. If anybody found out, like if I knew nobody would find out about this, would I do it? Right? That question right there tells you whether you are building your life according to values and excellence or whether you're trying to perform for an audience. It's really important that you ask that and you answer that honestly. Formation over performance every time. Obedience over pressure. Obedience over false urgency. Obedience over trends. Staying in step with the Lord over everything. Psalm 1:3, he will be like a tree firmly planted. What does this mean? When you've got deep roots and firm roots, you will produce visible fruit. That's just going to be an organic process that happens. When you don't shoot your roots deep, you won't have deep roots when the storm comes. And storms come. If you're not standing for anything, you won't be able to stand firm when you absolutely need to stand firm, and those times will come too. So let's bring this home. If somebody has misjudged your joy, your lightheartedness, your purity of heart, do not shrink. Do not shrink. But also, don't assume that you are formed just because you feel light. You have to build deeper roots constantly and consistently. Ridiculous freedom is always available to us, but not because we're just special, shiny humans, but because we are willing to develop. We are actually willing to do the work. Not in a performative way for all to see, but literally in a private way, because whatever you do privately will be revealed publicly. Okay? And this is truly what full capacity is all about. It's devoted to the people that are willing to develop. Okay? It is not a trauma dump. It is not a motivational book. It is not something just to hype you all the way up, but this is deep, deep, deep formation. It is showing you a life of congruence. It is showing you humanity. It is showing you how to really be aware of your love ministry and be a more compassionate human on the planet. Okay? It is a powerful book, a powerful book. So we are going to have so many different ways for you to be a part of that experience that I mentioned at the top. So go back and listen to those, but I will put all of those details in the show notes. What I would say to do right now, join us in the activation. It's such a great thing to be a part of. In this activation, I am sharing so many different behind the scene things about this process that's been going on for, it took decades to get to and over 3 years to write. So for what that's worth, I'm giving you some of the behind the scene things there. And it's just a very, very fun practical revelatory experience. And in addition to just having 4 weeks live of these live teachings and interactive experiences and activations, you will also get the launch ticket. So I would recommend join the activation. Okay, be a part of the 40-day devotional series because why not? Free devotional, that makes sense. And then join us for the live event. We're going to share all the details about how you can get the book and be a part of the journey. I've got exciting announcements that I'll share on the 21st itself, but you will be able to get the book. We're going to have a full day event. There is the live stream option as well, so there's really no excuses. If you feel called to develop on the inside and become a leader worth following, a leader without a title, right? If you are somebody that believes that excellent character, morals, and values matter more in this time than ever, this is absolutely for you. Also, if you are exhausted and tired from trying to perform, from trying to just be a high performer or a high achiever, this is a very different way to live, and I encourage you to experience it. Okay? All right, y'all. I hope this message blessed you, and until